All right, great. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This meeting is called to order. Thank you all for being here today. What will be an exciting and lively meeting, like they all are. So yeah, first things first. Let's go ahead and go through an approval of the minutes. So the minutes have been distributed in the materials. Thank you, Holly, and presumably read. Are there any noted corrections to the minutes? All right, okay. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
All right. Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed, say nay. All right, I nailed that. All right, the minutes are approved. Okay, next, going on to financials. Yeah, Holly, would you
Yes.
be able to give us a run?
Hi, everyone. Where did we end up at our last meeting? And I apologize, that should say funds as of last week, not August. The last time we spoke, we had allocated all of our money for the first grant cycle of the year. Woohoo! Where that fund was, we allocated of the $65,000 we have from our general fund amount. We had allocated $25,640, and from our BUEA fund, we had allocated $23,500. So again, that is the total amount that was awarded for the arts project grant cycle of the year. That left us with a total of $56,709 for the remaining two cycles of the years. That breaks down into $39,360 coming from that general fund allocation and $16,500 coming from the BUEA Zone Arts grant allocation. Now, the operations grant review committee got together last month, and we had a great 4-hour meeting, and we awarded a whole bunch more of grants, and those notification letters went out last week. MOUs will be following later this week and probably into next week, and once those MOUs are out, that's when we'll actually start dispersing those funds, and then you will start seeing that number going down. So even though it looks like we have $56,709 left for grants, we actually have about half of that. And that half will be allocated for the Emerging Artist Grant cycle that is coming up very soon. The Emerging Grant Artist cycle is open now. It will close on September 29th, and after that, we'll reconvene and we'll talk about how we're going to spend the rest of those grant funds for the year. In addition to those grant funds, we've got $5,000 kind of sitting there waiting to be used for emerging artist professional development opportunities. I'm hoping that we can focus on doing some of that work in the last 3 months of the year. In addition to that, we have $16,500 in the Public Art and Grants Fund, and this is a pool of money we have designated specifically for public art neighborhood projects in relationship to our public art master plan, which we are planning to publish next week. Simultaneous to that plan being published, we will be announcing a micro grant that we will be spending out of this public art and grants $16,500 from. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later in this meeting as we're going through the presentation we're planning for council next week. But that's where we are now, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about funds.
I have one question. What is supposed to be the time frame from when the letter goes out to the awardees, I don't know if that's a word, to the request for the MOUs to the actual disbursement of funds?
Ideally, it would all happen within 2 weeks of each other, but because we are operating with a significantly short staff, not just in the Economic and Sustainable Development Department, but unfortunately across the city, sometimes things just take longer. All I can tell you is that my colleagues, including Polly as a intern, are working diligently. Our colleagues in the controller's office who disperse those funds and our colleagues in the legal department who are generating those legal funds are also doing everything they can to get these things out in as timely manner as possible. I acknowledge those things don't happen as quickly as I know artists would like to see them happen, as quickly as I would like to see them happen. We're constantly trying to make that process better and more streamlined so we can get things out the door. But again, just because if one of my people is out sick for a week, that slows everything down. And that's just kind of the world we are existing in right now.
I think, from my experience, has been not weeks, but has been months and months. And I was really surprised about that, and I would think that other people would be equally surprised. So I wonder if maybe in the letter that goes out, there can be some, something in it that says that the time frame can be anywhere from 30 days to 90 days or something, whatever it is.
Yeah, that's helpful, thank you. I think at some point we actually did have that language in the letter, but I suspect, just kind of recalling off the top of my head what it reads like now, that might have gotten dropped, but I think that's great advice and we can put that in, especially as we're doing the emerging artist cycle when we're most likely going to be dealing with a large number of entities.
Yeah.
Any other questions about our funds right now? All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thanks all. And Holly, right back to you for the staff update.
All right. I want to talk about three things. First of all, I just want to share that the Economic and Sustainable Development budget presentation was 2 weeks ago. And so I talked about a lot of things, including the arts. I advocated for a lot of additional funds for grants, just kind of based on the amount of interest we're seeing right now and what we anticipate getting for the Emerging Artist Grant. We are really good at getting the words about our grants out, and there are a lot of really deserving folks in our community, so I did advocate for just bumping those numbers up. Another thing I proposed that we haven't talked much about in here is just allocating some funds towards doing more of a strategic plan for public art downtown. I'm really excited about the work we've done in the Public Art Master Plan to think about how we can do better public art activation in neighborhoods. But I do think, kind of based on a lot of the feedback we got from the 2022 Arts Feasibility Study, that beyond the city and us just saying, hey, we need more facilities to do X, Y, and Z, is kind of like, hey, we need to do all these things around downtown just to make folks feel like this is a dynamic community and there is a lot of great art that we can all connect around. So one thing I proposed to council and have proposed to the mayor's office is just allocating a chunk of ARPA money to enable us to do a larger scale plan for public art downtown. And that is just potentially working with, members of this committee and working with stakeholders around the entire community, potentially working with a consultant, depending on how much money we may or may not be allocated, and how comfortable we are working with people who might not know Bloomington the way we do, to come in and just help us decide, okay, over the next 3 to 5 years, where does it make most sense to put X, Y, and Z type of public art downtown? What kind of themes do we want to focus on? Do we want to focus on alleys? Like, how are we balancing performance arts with murals, with 3D installations, with lighting? How are we making choices about what kind of artists are we working with? What is the percentage of local versus regional versus national artists that we want to be going for? So this is another pool of money I have asked council for. This pool of money will be, even though I am proposing that pool of money, or I am proposing that project, it is the mayor's office that has made the larger proposal for downtown beautification and infrastructure that we would pull those funds down from to do that. So it is very, I don't have specific answers yet about how much money we might potentially get and what this is going to look like, but I do want you to know that is something that I have made an ask for and that I would ask you to help me do. Again, I think a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight and what we've been talking about recently is getting the Arts Commission involved at the very first step. And that's kind of how I would see this project moving forward, were we to be allocated those funds. Yes?
I can ask a question. Are you talking, you're not talking about 1% projects, you're talking about?
No.
Okay. I guess I'm curious if you could expand a little bit on the notion that there's feedback or desire for more downtown, because I feel like rewinding a few years and a lot of the conversations that we had around public art calls, the feedback was the opposite, that there's so much downtown already that there's actually like public art deserts throughout town. And like, especially as, you know, both commercial and residential are being developed further south along the Beeline, you know, out east near the mall, that those were sort of underserved areas. Like, I guess like, where's that feedback coming from?
This has come just from a lot of community members and a lot of the stakeholder group that was involved in the arts feasibility study in 2022. They've just reached out to me individually to say, hey, you know, we acknowledge the importance of art, you know, not just downtown. I share that acknowledgement. You know, I think we should continue to do both, but they did express a feeling of the paucity of just a more formalized plan of what could be downtown that is not here.
Okay.
And again, this is very ground level. We have a lot of time to talk about what this means, and we have a lot of time to talk about what it would mean to expand the funds we also have allocated for neighborhood related projects.
Okay.
I think it's a great initiative. Go for it. Yeah. Let's hope we get the
Try to
funding.
do all the things.
I mean, I walk along Kirkwood, I walk around the city square, and other than some memorials, and people are gathering outside more and more and more with the restaurant district and so on. I think there's good possibilities.
Okay, so there's that. The other two things I think we're going to kind of touch on at other parts of the meeting. I think, Gerard, we're going to talk about potential end-of-year party later in the agenda. And I also just want to acknowledge a conversation that is rampant amongst around Bloomington right now, which is the proposal of a new gateway structure in the Miller Showers Plaza in Bloomington. A press release was issued last week from the city about plans for that project. We have gotten a lot of feedback on that. The BAC did provide some feedback about those designs back in December, and I think there's been a little confusion amongst the public about what our role actually was. After we get through a few other agenda items tonight, I just want to review with all of you what has been done so far, and then we can have a conversation about where the project stands now and how we'd like to proceed. And that's what I've got.
You know, I don't know where this fits in our schedule, but along with what you're saying, one of the things that we had talked about during the grant meeting was with some of the larger organizations here, that different ideas or different concepts or different discussions that maybe we could invite them and community members to talk about how what the average people out there or non-average people are saying, because there's so much big talk about things that have changed or are not here anymore, and that a lot of people don't feel well served. And maybe that's something that we could facilitate, better communication.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know that in the operations grant letters, there was a note to both of those, like the larger organizations in question to discuss, like to have the meeting with them. So,
Yeah.
so that, I'm sure that will be a slow process, but it's underway. So, okay. Excellent. Any other questions or notes? Okay, wonderful. Okay, an update from the Public Art Chair.
Hi,
Natalie, take it
everyone.
away.
It's going to be a short update this month just because I was out of town during our normal, regularly scheduled public art meeting time, so we're going to have our full subcommittee meeting this Friday at noon. There'll be a Google Meet. So we'll just kind of touch on what we're hoping to start discussing in that and a few updates here. But at that meeting, we're planning to really hit the ground on Hopewell and really trying to nail down a certain project that we want to move forward with in the hopes of moving towards a call for artists and a call for a RFQ just as soon as possible. We really have spent a lot of time kind of looking at it, but now I think we need to reel all those thoughts in and really make a concerted effort to be like, this is what we want. We'll have other options or opportunities to do more art in Hopewell, but we want to pick our first one and really get that moving. So that's what we'll be talking about on Friday.
So day after tomorrow, Friday?
Yes, this Friday. Yeah, and that'll be again at noon, same time, be a Google Meet, but just this Friday instead of what would have been last week or the week before. I don't know what time it is anymore. I don't know what day it is at any given time, but anyway. Another exciting update is that we have 20 applications for the Duke Substation mural. So that, is really great, and we're hoping to get moving on reviewing those. And we'll talk about that in the subcommittee meeting, as well as we're going to ask for a few committee members to help review those. So we'll talk about that. And then, yeah, like Holly said, the public art master plan will be released next week after the rescheduled council meeting, along with the along with the call for the micro grants. That there'll be 10 of those, $1,000 each for neighborhood projects. And please, share those widely with folks if you know folks who want to do art in your neighborhoods. Or if you want to gently nudge anyone to that, we would love to do that. And we'll be reviewing those on a rolling basis as a subcommittee. So, yeah.
Have you defined the neighborhoods?
They're just Bloomington, city limits, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think at this point in time with this is a beta thing. This is new. We're gonna learn a lot with this cycle. I don't want to put too many constraints over who is applying and who we are awarding to. I would like to use this first cycle to kind of learn who is interested, who is looking out for these things, who is taking advantage of these opportunities, and based on that, think about, because we will most likely do this again in 2024, think about how we might kind of hone the process to make it better. We might also say, oh my goodness, nobody from this neighborhood or this area of town applied. How can we make sure that folks in this neighborhood specifically know about this again, so we're not getting these deserts?
Are you, I'm a little confused
Yeah,
about this.
there's a question on the chat. And also, I had a question. Can you send the link in the chat then to where these applications are?
The applications will not be posted until after our presentation to council. They're not live yet.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thanks.
What I'm confused about, are we saying that we want something in a specific neighborhood, like if there's a park in a neighborhood, or there's an area that, something that is, can be visually seen by, I'm just gonna say, take Bryant Park, there's no, visual anything defining it, Are we saying something like that and doing a mural or doing, some kind of mapping or what do we, I don't know what we're.
Yeah, it's pretty like flexible in terms of what folks can ask for, or, like what they want to do. I think we want folks to kind of take a more like, you know, community approach to it and what they want to see in there. And we're, you know, implementing this when we release the master plan in hopes that folks will like look through the master plan and kind of see what we've done, what we're like suggesting, and what kind of using that as a resource to then take these grants and be like, okay, this is what I want to do in my neighborhood. So we're like, I mean, murals, mosaics, like little sculptures, you know, $1,000 isn't, you know, it's something. But obviously we won't be doing, you know, huge projects with it. But yeah.
What about performance art? Is that also?
Yes. Yep.
So first of all, I just want to answer the question in the chat.
Mhm.
People have not applied yet. I apologize for that miscommunication. This is not a call that has gone live yet. And the other thing, I just, again, the reason we are doing this micro grants is meant to be an incentivation, an incentive for folks to actually take advantage of this public art master plan. A lot of love and care and time was putting into creating this document. We don't want it to die as soon as it goes live. So we want to encourage folks to take advantage of it. A lot of time especially was put into defining what is public art and making sure that included things like performance, sound, light. So our hope is that folks will take a look at this toolkit and they will use that to guide them on what types of public art they are proposing. And we do hope it runs the gamut of performance, murals, street festival, what have you.
I have two questions. First question is, in the call, is there a definition, like Babette mentions, like a park or whatever, is there a definition of what kinds of spaces are feasible for this? For example, where I live, there are these roundabouts, and there's these weird Quonset hut things in the middle of them, whatever. I don't know who owns those. I don't know who, like if we were to say, oh, we want something in the roundabout, that might be owned by, you know, Nature's Way Landscaping, for all I know. So how do we know where it's feasible? And my second question is, what's the time frame? Because in order to get something together in a neighborhood, people are going to have to talk to each other and all of that, and that could be kind of a long process.
Yeah, I think we're suggesting spaces for folks, and also part of it being rolling and like in, you know, more neighborhood oriented, that will have space to give feedback and kind of help folks like think about places to do that. Like if they propose it and we look into it, we're like, oh, we can't do it at a roundabout or wherever they want to. Like we're there and willing to like help kind of show these folks where they can do it. But we'll plan to have some spaces recommended if that's not already on the call.
Yeah, and there are also in the public art master plan, there are discussions about where is and where is not a good choice to make a
Right.
piece of public art.
Or what's legal and what isn't.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and what is okay in the right of way and what is not okay. So things like that are all incorporated into the plan.
Okay.
So,
To your second point, I don't know if we have a firm timeline like listed on it beyond like, or do you mean like for when folks have to have the like project completed by, or do you
No,
mean
when
like?
they need to apply by. For example,
yeah.
if I were to get this and I say, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a whatever in the whatever,
Mhm.
and getting you can
Yeah.
write that down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then
Whatever.
yes, thank you. Suzanne said. Then I'd have to talk to my neighbors, and maybe they're on vacation, and blah blah blah. You know, and drumming up interest and getting people to agree, because like what I come up with, the person across the street isn't going to like. You know.
Yeah.
To get that kind of consensus, and that somebody that could take a stretch of time, and I'm wondering what that stretch is.
No, that's good to
What?
consider.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have a longer
I'm on my
period
fourth
for.
year of street life. I finally got a map from, now I've gotta get the neighborhood to agree,
Yeah.
you know. and-
I mean, I say all this because I think it's a fantastic idea. I just
Yeah.
wonder,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
Some more
and
logistics.
yeah, this is all,
Yeah.
this is super helpful feedback, and I will say, like, as of now, like, the applications are rolling. We're not putting,
Okay,
we're
that's
not
great.
doing
Yeah,
cycles
that's
the way
great.
we
Yeah.
did with
That's
grants,
smart.
because I just,
Yeah.
Good.
I don't wanna torture anybody else with a 4-hour meeting.
Right,
You know, in my mind, these are open until the money is gone.
okay.
You know,
Yeah.
that's what we're kind of doing. And again, this is like, we are learning. This is a learning year. We are very lucky that we have these funds through
Right.
council, like, we are just
Mhm.
trying to see what folks really wanna do. And I don't wanna put so many constraints on this that like, people are just like,
They can't
it's a
do,
non-starter,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so.
What is our budget year?
Our budget year is, through the end of December.
Okay, and would money have to be spent by then?
It would have to be encumbered,
Fine.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I missed what you said earlier.
Oh, well,
Thanks.
you answered my question, because I was
Yep.
gonna say we should have a longer application period, but if it's just
Yep.
rolling, then that's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay,
Are we
everything's
gonna
locked
work
down.
with Hand on this?
Yes, we will work with Hand to roll it out.
Okay, because she's got
She's
great with the
brilliant, yes.
neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a great idea.
Another question I have about this is, there's certain kinds and demographics of people who even think of applying for grants. And I would hope that we would want to reach beyond that usual demographic, and I'm wondering if we have ways to do that, both in terms of promoting it as an opportunity, encouraging people and saying, you can do this too, and then the language used,
Yes.
like a rolling application, that might not mean something to a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't need an answer to that, I'm just
Yeah.
wondering.
I think that's great feedback, and like Babette said, we will be working with the Housing and Neighborhood Development Department, who has relationships with different
Okay.
neighborhoods, different neighborhood associations. I've also had some preliminary conversations with Natalie and Christina about reaching out to specific groups to go do presentations
Okay.
and just talk about what this is. Just
Like I'm
to
thinking
get
about
folks-
Broadview, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should,
Yeah.
put an ad in the program guide maybe, because that goes to everyone
Yeah.
in Bloomington.
Yeah. Is that the parks?
Yeah.
Program by?
Yeah, Crystal actually suggested
Yeah.
it, so
Oh, awesome.
that wasn't
Yeah,
my idea.
Crystal. Yeah.
That's a good shout.
Yeah,
Crystal with the assist.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be working with Chaz and Bethany to talk about like how to roll it out on social media and, you know, maybe poster and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll try to work hard to get it into the hands of the right folks.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all. This is super awesome feedback.
Cool.
And
Thinking about
I'll probably
writing
just
about-
send an email to the commission when it goes live too,
Same.
next
Yeah.
week. That way everybody here has it, has access to it. But yeah, that's the end of my public updates, unless there's any other questions.
Any other questions for the public art chair? Nope, I think we're good here. All right, perfect. So yeah, Layla's not here today, so Holly is going to fill in.
Speak up just a little.
Oh, sorry. Layla, our grants chair, is not here today, so Holly is going to give the grants report.
Thank you for everyone who participated in the operations review session. That was really great. It was a really nice mix of kind of known quantities in the 501c3 arts world here in Bloomington, and some new folks that we're really excited about. So again, notifications went out last week. We will do our best to get those MOUs and funds out the door as soon as we can. Thanks for everyone involved in helping me get that stuff out the door. Thanks to Layla for facilitating this all. Emerging Artists Grant is open now. It will be open through September 29th. So we'll be reaching out to members of the grants subcommittee, as well as a few members of the public, to help us do those reviews. We are anticipating a lot of applications. So far, 2.5 weeks out, we've already gotten 30 applications. So go us, but so good problem to have. Again, good argument for us to make to council next week for why we need more grant funds. So we will be meeting again probably in early October to review those grants, make our decisions, and then getting that money out the door as soon as we possibly can. And then always happy for folks who are interested in those grants to do office hours now to discuss their applications. We will not read an application, but we will give feedback on ideas and proposals. And after the cycle, we are also happy to meet with folks, tell them what we would like to see more of next time, things like that. Also working on getting some grant report forms out into the world. That is a high priority of mine. I think that's it for grants.
We should lock down some readers.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
Holly, have we modified
really helpful for
the
the last
Q and A there where we take, the grant applications have about, I don't know, 6, 7 sections in them. And our, reporting section has 3. So when we're going ahead and we're trying to evaluate an application, the reporting section really doesn't reflect
I agree.
Okay, so we're talking about the rubric, correct?
the rubric,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes, let's share that with, Layla.
I have a suggestion.
Yes.
Other than the things that are just straight up facts, like what's your address, we could just put an assessment on each question, like each essay question, so to speak, you know, like, and that way we don't have to translate it back and forth to a more condensed rubric question, you know? Like, even something as simple as how many people does this serve, right? And it says like 12, and you say, yeah, that's not a lot. Or, you know, or the question about how do you define DEI in your organization, we can just say like 1 through 5 or whatever on that question rather than having to relate it to another rubric. Is that making sense?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like that's a bit rigid. I actually like the form as it is now, because I think there are questions that overlap a bit. And I think if you're gonna have to score each individual question, we're gonna have to have a deeper discussion about the weighting. I mean, and not like we do everything strictly
Yeah.
score-based, like,
Yeah.
we discussed the scores, but we didn't award by score. We had a discussion around it, but, I don't know, this is probably better to talk about in a grants meeting.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's good feedback.
I think there could be I think there should be a middle ground, because I think both of your points are really valid, but the way that it is now is not a middle ground. It's too extreme in,
Condensing.
in the condensation.
Yeah, there were a couple of things where I was like, well, this and this are great, but the third part of that one question is terrible, so what do I, you know, what do I put, you know? So, yeah, I think I agree.
I mean, maybe, a few people could just kind of work on it, and come up with just something that makes a little bit more sense. I don't know how complicated it is to make that change.
Yeah,
It involves, I mean, a decent amount of thought and discussion, but.
and I think it's a good discussion to have in the subcommittee meetings, and I think it's something,
Is that a different form and format than the one that we used for
yes,
the science mural?
yes.
Which I
yes.
thought worked quite well.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have grant software for
Oh.
our.
How do you feel about that,
Yeah.
Public Art Committee?
Yeah. No, yeah. I want to take a moment, just acknowledge, thank you, Chaz, for answering the question about our mailing list, in the chat, and, what else was I going to say? Yeah, I think just acknowledging the amount of time we have before we need to get these grants out the door, I think we can take some immediate steps to just help us do our best practices evaluation for this cycle, and then I think we can have a longer conversation about, how that review process or rubric might change in 2024. I would just, I just want to acknowledge that will take time and commitment from subcommittee members to make that work happen.
Okay. Was that everything from grants?
Yes, that's it.
Any other questions? Okay, fantastic. All right, moving on to the from your chair. All right, got two kind of dense but important things, and then one less dense but still a very important thing to take on. So Holly and I are going to give I would say like a rough walkthrough of our presentation that we're giving next week with slides. Then I want to open up a quick sort of like BAC specific discussion related to the monolith project, the Miller Showers project. And then, as Holly alluded to, also like kind of get a rough sense of like what our cadence looks like for the end of the year, and specifically, you know, how we want to end it. You know, thinking about like what we did last year with a real nice sort of like reception and party kind of thing. Before we move on to the final parts of the agenda. So, okay. So before I throw it over to Holly, who starts the presentation, and also I think we'll give some other points of context. A few quick things is one, we're aiming to keep this to about like 8 to 10 minutes based on the amount of time that we have and the sort of the discussion portion that we also need to sort of like keep time for. So yeah, we want to cover a lot in a pretty quick amount of time. So we are looking, of course, for your feedback on like, you know, what works, what was there that you, or what wasn't there that you would like to see. And then, but also just keeping in mind that like, we have to either like walk this line between quantity versus like not so much quality, but just sort of like, you know, the specificity. Yeah. And then, you know, are there in addition to what's being spoken here, are there specific asks that you want us to make to the council?
And maybe this
things
is
you want them to
presumed,
know.
but it's probably best for us to let you get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then
Yes,
save feedback
please.
for the end.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, because this will also be our first like
Yeah.
kind of run through of this as well. So.
Y'all, this is very drafty. I'm not going to read from a script or do talking points. I'm also going to acknowledge we're missing a bunch of photos. I do want to thank Polly and our new Cox Scholar for my department for helping us gather bar charts and images, which we will continue to add, and I will just re-emphasize Gerard's points. What I'm really looking for here is like, what am I forgetting? Like, what are you so proud of about the arts that I'm forgetting? And what specific asks should we be making to council? Again, I will be kicking it off next week, and I will just start by introducing myself and sharing that as part of my role for the arts. I am the staff liaison for the Bloomington Arts Commission. Then I am going to seg into, that is the wrong keyboard, who we are. Pictured here will be your lovely headshots. Again, thanks to Polly for gathering many of those as part of our holiday party slideshow last year. And so I'm just going to share very briefly that we are made up of 11 commissioners. About half of those are appointed by the mayor, half of those are appointed by the council. Everyone on the commission is an expert in their field. They are painters, musicians, light artists, curators. They know Bloomington, and the arts are inseparable. They are committed to the best practices in arts in the city of Bloomington. I'm going to share that you all are a very dynamic group. You are critical, and you aren't afraid to challenge each other in the most respectful of ways. And I'm also going to share that you all help check my blind spots for best practices, and you always have the larger Bloomington community in mind when thinking about how we are allocating our spending in the name of our mission. What the heck is our mission, Holly? Okay, so our mission is the threefold. It is to provide leadership, or it's your mission, by and for the city of Bloomington, and to support and promote the arts and artists. It is to recommend policies and programs that develop and promote creativity and artistic excellence in our community. And it is to serve as a liaison between the government, artists, arts organizations, and the public. Right now, what that looks like on the ground are a few specific things. We focus on new public art projects within city limits. This includes the 1% for the arts program. It also includes grants for individual artists, arts groups, and 501c3s who are focused on arts. And it also means doing arts advocacy in general, providing guidance and doing engagement opportunities for artists. After I give that very brief overview, I am going to turn it over to Gerard to talk a little bit more about why we exist.
Sure. And I'll say, hi, I'm Gerard, chair of the Bloomington Arts Commission, and I'm a 10-year resident of Bloomington, I can say, as of this summer. The first point I'm going to hit on is basically sort of like, tackling the why we exist question by separating it into like 3 sort of sub-points. And like the first broad one is that arts and creativity make us stronger. As individuals, families, communities, states, and as a country, they are the backbone for innovation, prosperity, and thriving people and places. They help drive income for local businesses, retain talent, and improve the overall quality of place, both publicly and privately. The next point, arts are a critical part of Bloomington's economic and cultural landscapes. Polly, thank you for pulling together some stats and some language here for this. Saying, the NEA estimates that for every $1 spent on the arts, the community receives $9 in economic impact. This impact increases when dollars spent drive tourism and spending from folks outside the local economy. There's an arts and prosperity study saying that economic impact of arts and culture nonprofits, specifically in Bloomington, are 11% greater than that of average cities of a similar size, indicating that our Bloomington's arts nonprofits are more likely to spend those dollars locally. And then similarly, there's a Bloomington community survey from a couple of years ago that that really emphasized that residents were most appreciative of opportunities to attend cultural, arts, music activities. 89% of respondents responded to that as excellent or good. And then for context, sort of things like educational opportunities, small town feel, cultural activities, friendliness of people, see, am I getting this right? I need to unpack that a little bit. I think I'm not presenting that correctly. That's a lot of numbers there. So I'll make sure I'm. Yeah, right. I kind of got lost in that data there. So then the third point is local demand for the arts is high and it's growing. And there's a couple things here to point to. Residents expect quality and arts culture experiences in Bloomington. As we'll get to in the next section, local artists and stakeholders, need and expect resources and opportunities. This is particularly true with our grant applicants. And then, according to that Arts and Prosperity study, there are 3 times as many full-time employees in the arts than in other cities of a similar population. Man, that was too much for that section already. We are definitely going over time today. So then I will move to grants. All right, so we found, with the grants that the Bloomington Arts Commission does, we found a really good groove, hitting at 3 annual cycles in key areas: projects, operations, and emerging artists. Next slide. So total grants awarded in 2022 versus 2023. So this is sort of last year over 80 grants awarded, and we're on track to, I think, exceed that this year. And similar amount of money, but it's nowhere near enough, I think, what we need based on the number of applicants that we received, which we'll get to in some of the bar graphs here. So our projects grant cycle. This hits at a lot of different individuals, collective, nonprofits, partnerships of all mediums, age ranges, backgrounds, and audiences apply to do arts projects in Bloomington. WFHB, BLEM, Kid Kazooie, Cicada Cinema, the People's Market, and then DIY groups that put together events like Buffy Prom, all sort of apply for funding for this. And these are all the different types of groups that we fund with this grant. Perfect. And you can see the sort of applications versus the recipients. We are getting a ton of applications. We are doing a great job of getting the word out, but we are limited in the number of funds that we can give out. And you'll see that that's a trend in the other sections as well. So operations grants, this specifically gives operational funds to 501c3 nonprofits. So, we have the Bloomington Poetry Slam, Girls Rock Bloomington, Stages Bloomington, Windfall Dancers, Bloomington Creative Glass Center. Again, groups working in all different mediums, serving all different types of audiences. But we are moving away from sort of supporting our larger, arts entities like Constellation and BCT because we simply just don't have the funds, and we feel we need to support these sort of like groups with smaller budgets. Next slide. Yeah, similarly here, the number of applicants is going up and the recipients is also going up, although it's slightly less dollars per recipient. And then our final grant cycle hits at emerging artists. So these are artists who are new to the craft, not necessarily young, not necessarily some have been specifically educated in the area, some others haven't. But it's sort of folks who are new to becoming like a professional in this particular field, and if on the next slide it shows that we still have this cycle to go here, but yeah, quite a demand for funds and support here, and we only expect this number to grow in this coming cycle. So yeah, I have some more. I have some more bullet points I want to get to. We're already at 8 minutes though. Oh my gosh. But the story here is that there are a lot of artists in Bloomington who want to do public-facing work and who need public support to do it. So with that, I will go ahead and throw it to Holly.
Thanks, John. Okay, so then I will talk about the other focus is advocacy for public art projects in Bloomington. I'm going to define what public art is based on our definition in the Public Art Master Plan. I'm going to read it now just because we've been having conversations about it, acknowledging we're going to push this way over time. But our definition for the revised Public Art Master Plan is a form of collective community expression through any form of media created for the general public, traditionally through a public process, including artists, community leaders, and residents, among many, many others. It may take the form of a mural, a 3D installation, or a performance, and many other things. It must be visually, audibly, and physically accessible. And then I'm going to talk about why public art is important. And what I'm going to say is what I love about public art in Bloomington is that it reflects the community. It is a beacon that Bloomingtonians use to define themselves. It helps them define their civic identity. It reflects our past, our present, and our hopes for the future. And it recalls relevant themes that we can all connect over and discuss to progress into the future. And then I'm going to talk about a few examples of public art we've done recently, focusing first on the 1% for the Arts Project. I will quickly say this is the Hoosier North Line installation down at Switchyard Park. We've got Aurora Almanac over at the Trades District Garage. We have the 4th Street Garage Urban Fabric Project as well. And depending on time, I may or may not say, and we're going to do something in Hopewell very soon. Woohoo! And then I'm going to say not all public art projects that we advocate for are necessarily these large-scale 1% for the arts projects. We also often collaborate with city entities and other entities to do installations in parks, like the most recently completed Rogers Family Park installation at the Rogers Family Park that was done in collaboration with Parks. And then I'm going to seg into, so we take on a lot of these projects ourselves, but we acknowledge that there is a lot more creativity in this community and a lot of folks that want to do a lot of things that we don't have capacity to manage that all on our own. Therefore, we have chosen to empower the community by releasing a revised public art master plan that we see as a toolkit for folks to know how to do an arts project in their neighborhood, how to get in touch with artists, how to get funding for it, how to make sure they're doing the right type of art in the right type of place and engaging the community in the way they feel is most reflective of how they see themselves as a member of this community. As part of releasing this plan, which will go live at 8 a.m. on September 21st, we are going to release a series of 10 micro grants to incentivize folks to take advantage of this opportunity. This will be an invitation to folks to review this public art master plan and then propose to us to do a project that is based on the information they find here. They can then go online and fill out an application for up to $1,000 to get this project off the ground. These applications will be rolling. They will be reviewed on a first come, first served basis at our monthly public art subcommittee review sessions. Very excited for that. And then we're going to talk about the future. And I think what Gerard and I discussed earlier today was just using this as an opportunity to ask just to consider more funding, both for the grants as was proposed in our budget presentation a few weeks ago, and also again to emphasize our desire to do more projects in neighborhoods going forward. So continuing to use our public art local income tax dollars, which you see in our budget that we look at every month for that purpose, while also expanding to potentially do a more large-scale plan for public art downtown.
Cool.
That's
So
what we've got.
before we dive into comments, just for context, that was about 13 minutes. So we need to.
Okay, that's not bad though.
Not bad.
I mean,
but
we're just blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. I could definitely tighten up a
Yeah.
little bit in some sections, but
Yeah.
we gotta trim about 5 minutes from that. So.
Yeah.
I have to go soon because I have work, but
Okay.
two things.
Yes.
With the emerging artist section, I think like good language for that, and we spent so much time talking about this, so I feel like it's good to bring it up. But I always liked the language of like an emerging artist is like an artist that's gonna use the money, is capable of using the money to advance and develop their art practice. You know what I mean? Like leveling up. I don't know if there's a way of saying that that's more, professional or whatever, but like just, we're kind of like judging people based off of their ability to do so, like actually do the thing and like, show how it's gonna help them, the money, that is. And then the murals, I would also include, they function as landmarks, which is like a practical thing that they might appreciate.
And I think to your first point, I think just like using the phrase professional development
Yes, yes.
is the succinct way to do it.
Yeah.
I have 4 suggestions, they're small. First is, and in order of the presentation, do we know how many people responded to that survey that you mentioned? Because that'd be good to drop in, because, give it context of how widespread. One of the questions I first thought of when you started talking was, well, was this based on public feedback or not? And obviously it was, because of the survey, but, you could say X thousand people responded or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Unless it's a really small number, then don't mention it.
Yeah, we have the data from that. I think what I'm gonna do there is because I realize I probably went way too long in that section than I needed to anyway. Is I'm gonna say these things, and if
have a slide up that says.
and if the council wants to
slide.
ask about
Yeah.
the data behind it, I'll be prepared to have it. But that's a good
You
point.
can certainly have slides with more details than you say out loud.
Yeah.
That was one of my comments as well, actually.
Yeah.
Like,
Big
time-saving stuff is like all the stats you gave.
Yeah.
Put them on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that way, like, you can kind of like talk through them quickly, and use like general like Bloomington over indexes versus other towns, but then like verbal stats just kind of like go in and out of people's ears. But I think if they're up on the screen, they can jot down whatever notes they have.
Another point, and it relates to what Nick just said, you had a list of points about something, and the last one in that list was that Bloomington employs 3 times as many employees in the arts versus comparable cities. That's huge.
Yeah.
And that's a reason for people who who are listening who don't really care about the arts, if there is such a person, to say, oh, maybe I should care about this because we have a huge presence. So I would maybe make that the first point, or put that on the screen. Another point on your slide that lists in 2021, 54 how many grants, or excuse me, in 2022 versus 2021, how many grants. and the amount of money awarded, you have to put to date, because 2023 isn't finished yet,
Okay, yep.
right? Because it was like 54 grants to date, $80,000 awarded to date, with one cycle left, because otherwise it looks like it's full year versus full year.
Wait, sorry.
It's the one that says 54 grants and
go back.
and $80,000. That one,
There we go.
that one.
Yeah.
Maybe it says to date behind the black.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it says 2 of 3. Like I'll rephrase that to 2.
Yeah, I'd say to
Okay,
date. Yeah, to date.
Yeah, that's
To date.
And then the last point I have is there's so much ambiguity between the civic and public activity and the university activity, and I don't think it helps to have an image of the Ashkenazi
Okay.
Agree.
on the public art slide.
I just need note. That makes sense.
I think, wasn't that also Alumni Hall with that
Oh, was it?
organ?
You're
too?
taking away my life.
I know.
But that
Yeah.
was
From someone who spearheaded
that was
on a
blend.
commission.
Yeah, or
It was a grant.
it was a specific. It was I believe that was the one of the performances from the middle school group, I believe, or maybe that might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holly, can you go back one? This one?
Oh,
Yeah, the Bloomington immersion. Yes.
Yeah,
That's was like we specifically funded this through a one of our grants.
It was a project grant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Which isn't that
Definitely
great?
looks like a good one.
It was 130 people in that audience.
That's cool.
Yeah. I expected.
No, this was a
like-
great photo too. like
Yeah, it's a really
I
good
found
photographer. He
it on
graduated
line. I
and
was like,
left,
ooh.
but- Yeah, but no, we expected like 45. We expected the parents to come, and it was just as big as all the other, Yeah.
Can I ask, do you all need 2 things? Do you all need more photos, like of groups doing stuff, like dynamic
Yes.
photos? Because I think I've got a handful of them from stuff. But then also, do you need help with, if you need help with charts or graphs or that kind of stuff, I can pump out a few for you all for to use on these. We can
Cool.
chat
I think,
about it.
you can collaborate with Polly maybe on that.
Oh, yeah.
I would say, I
Mhm.
think, we talked about this briefly at last month's meeting, but I think one thing we have learned in doing this is, holy geez, we need to build up our photo library. And so we are, I am starting now, anytime we do a public event, we just hire a photographer to shoot it. And we have a more streamlined practice of how we're uploading that stuff into a shared drive. So like if I were to leave this position, all the photos would not disperse.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, so.
It'd be a good reason to keep calling you.
I've got like 2 other small things. One is just, I don't know if they necessarily care. I think we know the lore, but in the slides it's like there were only 2, or there was only 1 awarded emerging artist grant or something. Like it just looks so like I don't know. They might be like, why? Like, or what's that about? So it might be worth just like giving the time, like a single sentence of explanation on why that was a thing. And also, it was a thing because it was like not. I forgot why.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
Exactly.
It was like my second month of being here. It was still the middle of the pandemic. It was the first time we had offered the award, and I think, much to Chaz's credit, our ability to get the word out about that grant to the right communities just grew exponentially.
Yeah. So maybe just
Between
saying something
21
about-
and 22. Another thought I had on that slide too was I think it would be interesting just to clock a couple of hours before the meeting how many applications have been submitted for this year's Emerging Artist Cycle to say, y'all, we've already.
Thinking of
Yeah.
Yeah, and because I think also that, just to kind of give the same like 22 and 23 and focus on those years as opposed to going
as
back
opposed
to
to
that.
like, funny story, shout out to Catherine Coors-Rossman,
Yeah, right.
Were there in the mission section, is that do we have an official mission one?
Yes.
Yeah, right, okay,
Yes.
and that's directly pulled from that?
Yeah, so that is just me breaking down into a few bullet points,
Okay,
the
cool.
few sentences that are our mission statement. That is taken from the 2020 to 2025 strategic plan.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I
And,
was, like,
and
trying to
there's,
find-
there's a lot more language there. There's a vision, there's a mission, there's like, this is how this all kind of unfurls. It's just way too much to say.
Okay, Polly knows all the arts admin classes are
Yeah.
like, we're actively like scrutinizing mission statements in one of my
Yeah.
classes right now, and I was like, where is this coming from?
Yeah.
How long is it? Is it?
Yeah, oh yeah,
It's good.
yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, Polly, and then I want to get back to Vivette as well. Yeah.
Also, if it would be helpful, I could maybe like just format that fact sheet into something that could just be like sent with the slides ahead of
I would
time.
love that because
'Cause
ideally we would get this to council in
That way they can like
advance,
read through it, and then you don't
yeah.
have to worry about talking through it. You can just
Yeah.
hit like the essence of what they're actually
Yeah,
getting to,
things.
and not have to worry about.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I do think too, like some members of council, I mean, they need to know numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
For sure.
Yeah, and then Vivette,
The one thing I would just say is that this is the city council, and they are responsible for taxpayers. And that, which means families, children, gray hair, and students. This is, you got a lot of the things. My first thought in seeing this is that there are too many university-centric photographs. And that's the way a lot of it, just listening to the comments everybody's making, that a lot of it reads that way.
okay.
And that what is it, the first grant cycle, the special project grants? There were a ton of things in there that were all different ages. There was a lot of diversity and I don't think that we're showing. We're not showing the kind of, you know, some of the, and the things that I think were important to the council. Some of the things that have gotten a lot of people in here and that are more, you know, are big, that we have to be, and I think that if you have a rotating slide thing where, you know, it goes, then it doesn't really matter that they're looking at this and they're like, it's just the impression of them. I think the last one that Bryony did, that she didn't talk a hell of a lot. And she showed, they were really, I think it's still online or someplace, but they were great photographs. And I think that the specific people that you are, your target audience for that evening, so to speak, is more interested in that and seeing, and very carefully seeing diversity, major diversity in faces.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I guess, so we're kind of broadly talking about what's missing, but like, are there specific images or like events or groups that you feel like need to be added? That might give Holly and Gerard a little bit more to work with.
Because we'll have to grab photos from outside of what we have. Because like, yeah, like we.
I've got some adorable Girls Rock photos.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Like what events and organizations do we want to see represented in the
You know, I'll
slides that
look
aren't there?
and see what I've got, but, I mean, just go through the list of who all, you know, the grants and the concerts that were given, the huge amount of people that were at, I can't, Suzanne's concert, one of the, you know, showing the Arts Alliance, which has, I don't know how many members, showing things that have membership and how we are hitting on all different pieces of this community, you know.
So you mean like contacting those groups for
Well, or
photos?
maybe you have to, you know, see what you can find from anything from that. I don't know whether we don't do that much in the west side, but maybe there's some other things. Weren't there some really good pictures that we did of the, that west side or any of the other things, or Banneker, anything over there? I mean, try to get,
Yeah, not that I saw, but we can, we can.
maybe we can all look and
There's
see
those-
what we
there's a
have.
Traffic circuit there, I mean,
Yeah, we can check.
Are we required to use the template that you're using?
no.
I find it heavy. I find it lacking any sort of gentle reaching aesthetic. And I'm not saying like if something got to be covered in textures or whatever, but I just find this really abrupt. So that's just my response to it. It doesn't look like arts to me other than the content in some of the images. I was impressed that the first thing you showed was a dancer, because typically I think in the general mind it's visual arts that are thought of.
Yeah.
But then I thought it'd get a bit heavy-handed, because then we kept seeing all these performing arts, right, before we actually got to a good survey, or there was a mural, before we got to a good survey of all the many things that are happening in our city.
Yeah.
You know, the big daytime picture with all the people out there reminded me of Lotus. Do we support Lotus?
Yes.
Okay, that's a good thing then.
Do we?
We did for arts projects.
Okay.
And I appreciated going to the classical music. I got, this was in Trinity, and then there was more performance at the city market, and then there were dancers, and then a little bit of glass up in the corner. Do emerging artists make T-shirts? That's what I got from the picture. I didn't get what that picture was about.
Okay.
Yeah, well, one of them did. They were, yeah,
Yeah,
the,
Daisy,
like,
she was a
yeah.
fashion- yeah, we actually
she's
had a
like an
couple of
upcycler.
fashion designers.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it just looked
Yeah.
like making on your T-shirts, and so I
Yeah.
just, you know, maybe there's something with a little bit more.
Yeah,
Clearer focus?
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
the crosstalk is making it a little difficult to follow.
Okay, so what I'm hearing broadly, and I think we're all in agreement about this, is we need more, better, diverse pictures across age, across genre, across color. And I think that is something we can definitely work on in the next week. That's why I'm glad we still have a week to work on this. I think that's what we're gonna be focusing on in the coming days. I also hear your point, Rob, about, I think the first slide, like right now, it's like, meh. No, let's make that all those images that you're describing
Yes.
to capture all those genres.
Yeah,
And
is
so
it
that they
possible
can-
maybe to just sort of have a montage where each image gets to be the entire frame, and as you're going through some of the aspects?
There's not gonna be enough time though, right? I mean, you're just gonna be flipping through these.
Yeah, I feel like my concern is like, I've gone back and forth on this. Do we just want scrolling images behind us, right? But I think what we're going to lose if we choose to go that route is being able to put those stats on the board while we're speaking.
In context.
Yeah.
People's
One-
attention to.
Yeah.
One slide at least should be just like a ridiculous amount of photos that are just like tiny.
Okay.
agree.
I think that
Yeah.
you're talking about numbers, if
Yeah.
they like numbers.
Right.
Yeah,
That's a great idea.
okay.
Yeah, make a mosaic.
So to finish, I appreciate you talking about Bloomington, and we do have an identity with the arts, and we're an art-centric culture, I think is a simple way of putting that. I'm not sure what the switchyard art was on the side of the building. The one I played with is like tracks in a
Bleachers one,
train,
yeah.
so I don't know what that one was, so that's,
It was the other half of the project.
Yeah.
sorry?
It was the other half of the project that we funded.
Oh, okay.
We had two walls.
Yeah,
we
but
can-
I
we
agree
can
that
put both
photo
walls.
isn't
We can
as-
put
Yeah,
both
I
walls
didn't-
on the
I didn't get
slide.
it.
Yeah.
And yeah, more funds based on requests and the number of applications. I mean, you know, I think we have to justify that people are wanting this, and it's not only the applications, but there are requests coming in to do things. And is there any reason why we can't show some of the older established art pieces that have been invested in? You know, like the table that's right out here at the market.
Yeah, that's one, yeah, that's why I'm like catch my blind spots, yes.
Yeah, or,
Yeah.
you know, whatever seems to grab somebody, something from the trail, the bridge, I don't know who funded it, you know, anything else.
That's
Some
Star
things of
Trek.
scale,
That's
not
Star
only
Trek thing.
small. See, that's
Yeah.
why I appreciated Light Totem being up there.
I'm gonna make a suggestion, because I feel like we're just throwing a lot of darts at Holly and Gerard. If there are specific images that we either have, or specific events or locations that we want represented, I think it's on us to help do the work and provide them.
Yeah, thank you.
Who should we send it to?
A million.
Please,
You got
who do we wanna send them to?
You mean, or I'm happy to.
I would say, would you please send them to me, Gerard, and Polly, if you're okay with that?
For sure.
Okay.
And to interrupt one more time, just to finish my list, objects of scale and small things. So that it's not all just, it's $1,000 a person life. I mean, some communities are investing millions for significant pieces within their environment that aren't done by landscape architects. Whoops. Okay, done.
You can say it. And Suzanne, last comment.
An image that's missing, other than that one that I think is actually from Pride Fest, of the audience, we don't have much in terms of these grants and this activity we do is for the audiences and the viewers as much as for the artists, because that's what's improving the community. And so, I mean, there shouldn't be too much from one organization, but I do have from 2022 a really wonderful selection of images of audience members looking like they're loving it, and you know, and big like panoramas of audiences, and I think that's.
Yeah, I could definitely use that for like the demand is growing.
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
wanted the chamber singer, that big concert.
The what?
All the groups and all the rest of it.
Oh, I don't know if there was a photographer.
So I just have one quick note. I know we want to wrap this up. These are purely like time-saving suggestions. Do with them what you will. We already talked about putting stats on the screen. I think, with the exception of maybe like the big collage, where you have 2 or 3 images, you can label them, so you don't have to verbally contextualize them. It's one less thing they have to say. And then, you know, just one thought, and again, I don't want to create a lot of work, is that you could always combine the grants bar graphs onto one slide, so that you're just moving through slides more quickly, and you can kind of see all in one capture that there's a rise in each category. But
I have one question. Is it in our best interest to say, you know, project grants for people such as enlist some of the organizations so they see the vast number of?
Then I don't have to say them too.
It's a
guess.
question. I
I
don't
can
know.
throw them on there.
Yeah, you don't
that's
have
a
to
good
say.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could be a more,
Bye.
Yeah.
you could have a
Yeah.
more complete list.
or it could go in the fact sheet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or both. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Which one in the fact sheets? I'll be editing that.
Like examples of grant recipients for each category, to like help contextualize each.
Or even
Yeah.
a full list of them.
Or full list,
A full
depending
list.
on how long we want the
Yeah, in
fact
fact, that would be
sheet to be.
great, yeah,
Yeah.
because it's impressive.
Right, and you're gonna have someone on council who says, well, my daughter's in this, was that awarded something? And
Right.
if it's not on the list, then maybe it wasn't awarded.
Okay, this is all, yeah, super helpful. Well, like, I have a good sense of what we can,
Yes, thank you for
Yeah.
bearing with us through the draft and the
It's a lot
drive
of work, I
and
mean, thank you for doing it.
That's nice to finally do one. I'm just, yeah, I wish we had more time and,
Yes.
you know, but.
The time is crazy short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
That's unreal.
yeah, but it's, at this point in time, we do want to be respectful for council, and we can talk about how we approach that going forward. Maybe we do this twice a year, Gerard.
I mean, well,
Yeah.
speaking of time, we
Yeah.
have 5 minutes left and a lot to get through. The Miller Showers thing is timely, but I don't think we have time for really a discussion on it. So yeah, I don't know. Is there, not to push this into territory where it doesn't belong, but is there potentially time in the grants committee meeting to maybe address some of the, or sorry, not grants, the public art community meeting to address some of this, or?
I mean, quick point of order here. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Historically, we have gone over before. I know we don't like to. But I guess the question is, and if people need to leave at 6:30, that's totally fine.
Sure.
But for the people in the room, is there a desire to go over, to spend more time on that topic now? Or do we want to defer it to another meeting?
I can't, I have to bring a kid out to dinner.
Okay.
It is so timely, and the people that are complaining to me, that I passed on, so, I mean, if we ignore it, that's fine too, but this is airtime.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it in the minutes.
Stay a little bit.
Yeah, I guess the other bit too.
Just a little.
Do we want to, for those of us who are comfortable staying, do we want to give ourselves a time limit? Because I also just don't want this to rabbit hole into a 60-minute conversation.
Yeah, I think, yeah,
I don't have anything to say, but I'm happy to listen.
can we do 10, like,
Yeah,
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Yeah, so
You know,
we'll
we
call
started
it.
just you presenting the details.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think Holly and I talked about some like key talking points for this, and so I'll just kind of go through those quickly, and then
Great.
we can. So, so like I think again keeping this within the scope of like the BAC and how we are and are not linked to this project is really kind of like what I want to focus on, not just like our general sort of like civic and personal opinions of this, but just sort of like the BAC and its connection to it. This is a parks-led initiative which came out of a bicentennial fund, a bond in 2018. The BAC did have an initial review of the project back then, but then this was pre-COVID, before I think any of us were a part of the commission. Then the project was restarted in 2022. And then the BAC was brought in. Remember they came to us basically with the plans, and we gave our feedback, which was I think fairly critical of it says, and a little disappointed that we weren't brought in to actually like really give like artistic input. But yeah, they weren't gonna go back or start from scratch or anything like that. So we gave our feedback, and that was that. The Parks Department did host general feedback sessions for the public, yeah, I think those are like the main points that apply to us. Holly, are there any other like key facts that you want to present before we sort of open things up?
No, you hit the facts. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and then the one last thing is, in the press release that came out, we are referred to as the Bloomington Arts Council, which we are not. We have the Bloomington Arts Commission, but we are listed as a group that provided feedback. And I think, we know what that process looked like, but having our name, albeit miswritten, our name in the press release as a group that provided feedback sort of implies a sense of like approval and like input and things like that. And so I think that's like me, that's where a lot of my concern kind of like comes in here, and sort of like what we in the sense that we are receiving criticism or getting folks coming up to us and talking about it, or just like asking about it, like how we are like collectively sort of like talking about our relationship to this process and to the piece itself. So
I think that's helpful, because when people do mention it, it's nice to really get a good sense of the history and be able to defend our role in it as it was.
right.
I mean, I guess if someone walked up to me on the street, I would be inclined to be pretty blunt, that we gave critical feedback. We largely didn't consider it public art.
Yeah.
We didn't fund it. We didn't have a voting role. And most of our feedback was not taken on board. Is there any political reason why any of those bare facts are problematic?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not. No, and again, there's a difference between like, who I am in service of and who you all are in service of.
So it's appropriate to ask for our name to be taken off the press releases?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
Not to go.
All right, so it's
Right.
I'd just like to share something before I express my opinion.
Sure.
This is from Dale Enoch, and he's talking about symbols, and comes down to this. I believe this Bloomington symbol might not speak of the Bloomington I've known. This image appears to be similar to a commercial sign devoid of depth and warmth. Bloomington has always been an island of warmth. From my perspective, it's a sign, it's not a piece of public art, and therefore I don't know why we should be associated with it.
Yeah.
Do we know how far along the design, like, is this design like set in stone? It's the way it is happening. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I mean, I would say up until yesterday, yes. There's been a lot of public
Yeah.
response to it.
I would say the city is planning to continue on the path that they set out on.
Can
in
we just
2018.
write a letter that's a consensus from us that says we just want to go on record that we've had enormous, unlike anything else that we've done, that we've had enormous negative feedback on this, and that, you know, we clearly want to express that.
A letter to whom?
Maybe
Who is it, Parks and Rec,
Parks,
City?
is it Parks or?
Who's ever on first? I don't know who's on first.
Again, I think that is fair. Again, I think this is where we kind of have to separate
Got it.
city
Yeah.
and BAC.
Yeah, how
So-
would the rest of you all
Yeah.
feel about
So
something
we
like
send
that?
you the letter?
I mean, for what it's worth, I already started writing something a couple nights ago.
Okay.
Like, I mean, I'm happy to, I mean, I don't know. I'm happy to send something around, and it doesn't have to be like a voted BAC like statement, you know. But you know, if anyone wants, I can send something around probably tomorrow, and then if anyone has feedback, you know, or wants to like co-sign, you know, we can do it that way.
I can send you a couple of comments.
Yeah, sure.
From others and myself.
Yeah, yeah.
Good. That's great.
Yeah, that would be great.
Nick, is the letter like, this is why, like, we don't view this as, like,
Nick writes very
I know,
ecumenical.
I know you write very eloquently, I have no question with that. I'm wondering if the
Yeah.
contents are like, we are against this piece, or is it we are against this piece being, like, them saying that this piece was endorsed by the Arts Commission, or is it?
To be honest, it's like a stream of consciousness draft at this point, just
Uh-huh.
because that's how I write. But it's more about clarifying our role
Yeah.
and why we don't consider it public art.
Okay. Yeah,
And that was the crux of our feedback that we provided in December.
Yes.
Yeah, what you said earlier on, the points are super clear,
Yeah.
and I feel like it should remain neutral as to whether we like it personally or not. We just have to be clear that we didn't support it or fund it or
Yeah.
And
et
that
cetera.
we're just getting huge amounts of pullback on it.
I think that it would be good to ask them to take us off any further news releases if they plan on putting any more out, you
Sure.
know.
I mean, I think we
Or to
have to
clarify,
be
like-
careful.
Right.
Yeah, I think they need to clarify what our role is, because we did talk about it and we acknowledge, yes, this is, what the heck is this? But we did also give feedback on the design itself. So I think we would get pushback from the mayor's office and communications to
Whose
actually
idea
do
is
that.
Parks.
Yeah.
It's Parks.
It's Parks, it's not the mayor's office, maybe.
Correct, but-
it's from the it's funded by the bicentennial
Yeah,
bonds.
and so it's, you know, it's both.
I also, like, would maybe not want to get fully taken off, because I think we had some really great feedback in that session, like big.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was factually true, aside from the name being wrong.
Right.
But
exactly.
we were
Which is
consulted
another-
gave
Yeah.
feedback, which is I think is all that it said. It didn't say
Yeah.
that we approved it. So,
Yeah.
Tacitly
Yeah.
suggests that.
Yeah. Right,
It does,
right.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
We could ask them for a parenthetical, because BAC offered feedback and hated it, or something.
Yeah, and there
Which
is,
was ignored.
Offered feedback.
Right. That'd be factual, right?
we're probably at our 10 minutes.
Yeah, I want to share. I forgot. My brain is gone, you guys. I think the one thing I want to share. First of all, thank you for being excellent allies in doing your job. As I was putting together the presentation and just kind of reviewing the mission statement, I was like, yeah, this is our job to, or your job to, advise, right? And I forgot the first thing I was going to say, which I think is more important than the second thing I'm going to say. But again, the one thing I'm hoping comes out of this ultimately, regardless of where this project lands, is we do have a commitment from Parks going forward that we will be involved in the
Beginning.
early stages going forward. And I think I've shared some of this with you all before. Sometimes the arts is 1.5 people at the city right now. If Chaz and I are not clamoring at meetings, people just aren't thinking about the arts. I wish that she and I could be at every meeting when things like this are discussed. Unfortunately, at this point in time, that's not the case. We are trying to do better. I think another thing, reviewing this press release, which was not shared with me before it was made public, so I couldn't catch the commission versus council thing, is there's still a lot of education that I can do amongst city colleagues. I do think there's an issue. The council is 20 years old at this point. It is old news. And the fact that people are still using that vocabulary is something that I should be able to do something about in my capacity. And I apologize for not being better about that in the future, but or in the past. But going forward, we will work on that education. The last thing I will say, acknowledging we are at time, is like there are some trainings that we have to do in the city for best practices and record retention and blah, blah, blah. And my dream is that we do one called What is an Art? Where we just describe for the city what art is. And I would ask you all to be part of the, the dramatizations of what is art.
Architecture or
Yeah.
lack thereof here.
Yeah.
No, they just don't think that way.
Yeah, and so we're going to do better, and I am heartened by Parks' commitment to work with us going forward. I think that's real. So I'm excited about what we're going to do together in the future years.
Which is why it's important for us to also do our stuff at our meeting on Friday, like really try to get something. We have the opportunity to get in on the ground early with this football project. Like, let's take full advantage of that. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a couple of things here, Suzanne. I'm gonna follow up with looking to the end of the year. I'll send some notes on that rather than spending time here.
Thank you.
And I'll encourage you all, if you haven't already, to, for item number 7, upcoming events and important dates, look at that document and add to it as needed. So then we'll move on quickly to commissioner announcements. Anyone has anything that they would like to share with the group or announce?
I just want to say that on Saturday, October 7th is the second annual Paint Bloomington, and if anybody can take any of these, has a place to put them, it would be great. The only place on campus I have them is in the social, whatever, the other building. So yeah, I've got tons.
Oh,
Take as many as you can, and here's all the little flyers, and I really would appreciate it. Yeah.
This isn't quite an announcement, but I do just want to shout out Christina and Chaz and everyone else that was involved in Blackie Brown Fest. It felt awesome. The Friday night opening was great. Having it in Switchyard Park felt really great on Saturday. And then just sort of separately, Labor Day weekend, there's a Butter Art Fest up in Indianapolis, also focused on specifically like Black African American artists. A few of us went up, and just want to mention there were a couple of Bloomington artists included in that show, and there was cross-pollination between that and the One Drop show that we had previously, and so that constellation of events feels really awesome. So good job, everyone.
Thanks.
Any other commissioner announcements? Okay.
Thanks for being there, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, thanks for showing up, and thanks for the nice word. A double applause for Christina. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks to Chaz and Christina both. You, incredible. I know we're at time, so I'm not going to say anything else. And then public.
Yeah, next to public comment is, public still there. Any comments from folks online? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.